Swordtails are some of the most popular fish in the aquarium hobby. So today we're going to continue our fish room tour and take a look at the swordtails in the fish tank barn. Hello there, fellow fish keepers. Mike here with the fish tank barn again. I'd like to welcome you back to another video. I decided to take it outside today, just get out in the fresh air a little bit since we've all been kind of inside for quite a bit. So today we're going to talk about swordtails. We're going to go ahead and take a fish room tour of the swordtail tanks and also talk a little bit about the general swordtail care. So let's go ahead and pop inside the barn and let's go ahead and take a look. So before we kick off the tour section of our video, let's talk a little bit about swordtail care in general. Swordtails are extremely hardy fish, which originated in Central America and Mexico. The majority of the fish that you will find in your local aquarium store will be the Xiphorphorous helleri, which is the most common swordtail species. This species has been a staple for many years in the aquarium hobby and has gotten many us fish keepers started with their first aquarium. Some of the general care requirements for swordtails. Swordtails will generally require a temperature between 72 to 78 degrees. I generally like to keep swordtails in a little bit of a larger tank than what is recommended. The internet kind of recommends a 29-gallon or larger from what I've seen. So I generally like to keep my swordtails in larger tanks, such as 55s, 40 breeders, even 75 gallons as well. It gives them a lot more room to breed, gives them some more swimming room. You can give them some open spaces, some planted spaces, etc. So from a diet perspective, swordtails will eat a variety of different foods. In the wild, you do find them picking at algae, so you would definitely want to consider some vegetable-based food in their diet for sure. So generally when you see them in their aquarium, when it's not feeding time, you will see them rummaging around, picking up things off of the rocks, picking at algae. In terms of compatibility, swordtails are generally pretty good tank mates. They will be aggressive towards other males. I would, however, not recommend putting them with fish that may nip at their tails, nip at their fins. Also, another consideration in terms of tank mates is that you do not want to put them with shrimp. They would eat the baby shrimplets for sure, or any other fish that they could fit into their mouth. Sexing and breeding swordtails is pretty straightforward. Male swordtails will have a long sword extension on their tail, which is why they're called swordtails, as well as an organ called the gonopodium in the place of their anal fin. Females in general will be lacking the sword, as well as having no gonopodium and a normal anal fin. Swordtails are live bearers, so like their guppy, platy, and molly cousins, they do drop live young about every 30 days or so. One thing to keep in mind with swordtails is that some of them are fry eaters, so therefore you do want to provide a ton of cover with plants, or also move the female to a breeding tank. So let's go ahead and step into the barn and take a look at the swordtails that we are keeping in here. Let's come to the first swordtail tank that you see immediately when you walk into the fish room. This is my Xiphorphorous Clemenciae, otherwise known as the brass swordtail. This species was collected in 2003 in Lake Catemaco, Mexico, which is also why it's known as the Catemaco swordtail. This is one of the larger swordtail species, reaching about 5 inches in length. Males of this species are also known to possess extremely long swords. I'm currently housing these fish in a 40-gallon breeder with some of the reef rock that we mentioned earlier. Also, this tank has a sandy substrate along with some Vallisneria. I have had some fry drop from these fish, but not very many of them have survived. So I'm going to work a little bit on aquascaping this tank a little bit better with some more plants and some more hiding spots for the fry to hide in. So I did pick these fish up in October of 2019 at the Grand Valley Aquarium Club auction. This is definitely a fish I do enjoy. I really do enjoy the swordtail along with the bronze color. So this is a fish I'm really looking forward to getting bred and getting to some of my aquarium friends. The next tank we're going to come to here is my 90-gallon tank. This tank is home to my black swordtails. This is a aquarium variety, so not a wild type, but I do really like the black swordtails. They are some of my favorites. They are sharing a home right now in this 90-gallon tank with some jeweled gadiids, known as the Xenotoca variata. So it's definitely a pretty interesting look in here with the jeweled colored of the jeweled gadiids, along with the black from the swordtails. I really do enjoy this. This tank does have a little bit of driftwood in it, along with some Cryptwind Deadeye Red, some Vallisnerias in here as well. Everyone seems to be getting along in here so far, so this tank has been a little bit of an experiment. trying to see how well the swordtails and the gadiads get along. So I did pick these fish up at the big fish deal. Basically, I bought a breeding pair along with a group of about 4 juveniles. Do like to do that a lot with live bears, or I like to get a group of them to start out with if I can, so you can kind of get it going without any trouble if you have some losses. Since I just picked these fish up at the beginning of March, I've not seen any fry from them yet. So one interesting thing to note with black swordtails, so there is a strain called the Berlin black swordtail. So that strain is defined by having the black body with the fins being orange or red. So that's something that's pretty interesting to see in these fish. I kind of think I got a mix of both. I think I've got some Berlins in here along with maybe some just commons. This tank does sit right next to my desk, so I do get to see this quite a bit, especially now that we're working from home. I just kind of glance over and take a look and watch it every once in a while. So definitely a fun little tank for sure. We'll definitely give you guys an update on how this little experiment turns out. Alright, the next fish that we have here is the Xiphorphorous monozume, otherwise known as the Montezuma swordtails. This fish is referred to as the king of the swordtails, just due to its large body length and length of the sword itself. This fish can get a rather extensive sword. So the Montezuma swordtail is native to Central America and northeastern Mexico, primarily the areas of Tamaulipas, northern Veracruz, and San Luis Potosi. Generally, you would find this fish in rivers and other bodies of water with thick vegetation. So in the aquarium, this fish would like an aquarium 30 gallons or more. So these fish for me are in a 75 gallon. But they do like their tank densely planted and do like some open areas for swimming space as well. So I did pick these fish up in October of last year as rather small fry. They are growing fairly rapidly, so I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys turn out like, but definitely it's one I'm excited to get grown out and get started breeding here in the fish barn. Alright, the next fish we come to here are my Xiphorphorous Clemenciae. These do have a very specific location, so this is the Puente San Luis, which is 9 kilometers from Cerriba, Oaxaca, Mexico. So this fish has been subject to some hybridization discussion, so having a fish with some location information is definitely important if you're trying to rehome or resell these fish at a later date. I will put a link in the description to an article that does talk about some of that back from 2007. Definitely something that's pretty interesting to see. So aquarium-wise for this fish does like kind of lower flow. Planted tank, much like many of the other swordtails we've talked about earlier. So to colony breed these fish, it is kind of required to have a tank of at least 30 inches or so. I keep these in a 75, so definitely big enough for these fish. I did pick these fish up in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the GVAC auction back in October of 2019. These actually did spawn almost immediately when I got them home, which was kind of nice. So I do have a pretty decent group of fry growing out along with the adults in here. So it's definitely one that's pretty exciting. It does only get about 2 inches long or so, so it is definitely a smaller species. But I usually like keeping all my swordtails in a bigger type tank. So that being said, this is a species, another one I really want to get populated and get going, get the stocks built up, and get it out to some of my other hobbyist friends. Alright, the next fish we're going to come to here is my Nezi sword, also known as the Xiphorphorous nezahualcoatl. This fish is also known as the northern mountain sword. Fortunately, I only have this female left. I had a male and another female, unfortunately, that didn't make it. So I'm looking for this fish to spawn out so we can get this colony going again. This fish is a pretty interesting fish. It is found in some moderately moving streams in San Luis Potosi, Mexico, in the Rio Tomasi drainage. In the wild, it's found grazing on algae-covered rocks. So this fish gets usually about 2.5 inches long. Generally does like a sort of lower temperature from about 68 to 74. One thing to know about this fish is it does eat its young though, so you do need to have an extremely heavily planted tank or actually move the female to a different breeding tank. So this fish was sharing a tank with some high fin gold dust mollies, but I'm going to move this fish to its own 20-gallon tank upstairs in the new rack that was built. So I'm excited to get this colony going and get this fish bred out to some of my fellow hobbyists. Well there, fellow fish keepers, I do hope you enjoyed that tour of the swordtails in the fish tank barn. I hope you learned a little bit about swordtails. I definitely did, doing some of the research on this video, especially researching the black Berlin swordtails, something I really did enjoy. So So if this is your first time here and you've not subscribed to the channel, check out a couple of the videos that come here at the end. If you like what you see, hit that subscription button, ding the notification bell, and as always, stay fishy, keep on breeding, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.